Good evening. I'm Jim Axelrod, and this is a Western edition of the broadcast. For the first time ever, someone infected with the deadly Ebola virus has been brought into the country for treatment. Dr. Kent Brantley, who was working with Ebola patients in West Africa when he contracted the disease himself, arrived late this morning just outside Atlanta in a Gulfstream jet specially outfitted with an isolation tent. From there, he was transported in an ambulance to the Emory University Hospital, where surprisingly he was strong enough to walk into the hospital. Emory has one of the most sophisticated infectious disease units in the country. Brantley was working with the Christian missionary group Samaritan's Purse, caring for Ebola patients in Liberia when he got sick. Vicente Arenas picks up the story in Atlanta.
A private medical jet carrying Dr. Kent Brantley landed at Dobbins Air Reserve Base in Marietta, Georgia, around 11:20 this morning. Inside the plane, Dr. Brantley was kept in an isolation tent and wore a suit to prevent him from infecting medical workers with him. The 33-year-old physician from Texas was then transported by an ambulance outfitted with internal protective drapes to Emory University Hospital 20 miles away. He walked into the facility with help from a paramedic. He'll be kept in an isolation unit that was built in collaboration with the nearby CDC. Dr. Jay Varkey is an infectious disease specialist at Emory University Hospital.
Do you worry when you go in and treat a patient that has a disease like Ebola?
I don't. I truly believe in the practices we have in place, and I have no specific concerns either for my personal safety or for my colleagues.
The doctors will wear protective suits. The Ebola virus can only be transmitted through close contact and bodily fluids. The CDC points out the chance of Ebola spreading to the workers and others in the U.S. is highly unlikely. Doctors say Brantley's chances of survival at Emory are much higher than they would be in West Africa.
We can deliver a substantially higher level of care and a substantially higher level of support to optimize the likelihood that those patients will survive this episode.
The CDC says the only way to end the epidemic for now is to stop it at its source.
Policy Unit 2.
The agency's Emergency Operations Center is tracking Ebola's spread in Africa and helping organizations figure out how to keep other people from becoming infected.
Dr. Brantley was last listed in serious condition. His wife issued a statement today. She spoke to him by phone, and she says that he's glad to be back in the U.S. Meantime, the other worker fighting Ebola is scheduled to be back here in the United States in the next couple of days. Jim?
It is a busy and potentially dangerous weekend weather-wise coast to coast. Let's bring in Eric Fisher, the chief meteorologist with our Boston station WBZ. Eric, let's start out in the Pacific Northwest where there's a big concern about thunderstorms.
Jim, these are thunderstorms that are dry, meaning that they're still raining, but that rain evaporates before it reaches the ground. They still have the lightning, so red flag warnings out here. Much of Washington and Oregon east of the Cascades. Gusty winds with those storms, and of course, a lot of big heat and dry weather this summer so far. We've seen several of these fires burning in central and eastern Washington. Also, the Gulch Fire in Oregon. This is a fire, Jim, that was started by a lightning strike on Thursday.
Nothing dry about what's going on in the Southwest.
No, this is a different type of thunderstorm. This rain is reaching the ground in earnest. Powerful area of low pressure that's down near the Baja Peninsula. So widespread flash flood watches are out here. Main concerns are for rapidly rising water. Mud and debris flows are possible. Some dangerous travel conditions. At times, this water reaching up to the chests of a lot of folks who have been out and about. So be very careful traveling here.
Now, across the continent, there's a tropical storm dancing off the coast of the Dominican Republic. What can you tell us?
Busy times, yes. Tropical storm Bertha. It's not a big Bertha right now. 45-mile-per-hour sustained winds. It just passed Puerto Rico. It's going to brush the Dominican Republic. And then tomorrow will be passing through the southeastern Bahamas, where tropical storm warnings are up. As we track this into the early part of the week, Jim, this is the good news. It shoots the gap between Bermuda and the East Coast. It should bring limited impact to both.
Got to keep your head on a swivel if you're watching the weather. Eric Fisher in Boston, thank you. The governor of Ohio has declared a state of emergency in and around the city of Toledo. Tests show the area's water is toxic and no one should drink it. As Mark Albert tells us, some 500,000 people now have no water.
Residents in Toledo and nearby communities on Saturday quickly bought up water bottles, leaving store shelves empty after health officials declared the public water supply off limits. Toledo Mayor Michael Collins.
We have used every single resource throughout the state of Ohio, including now up in Michigan, in order to bring a supply of water to get us over this first period.
City officials say a recent test at a water treatment plant found a spike in the level of microcystin, a toxin that comes from algae found naturally in lakes and ponds. When ingested, it can cause numbness, nausea, vomiting, rashes, and even affect the liver. 500,000 residents in 3 northwest Ohio counties who get their water from the Toledo water system have been warned not to drink it or let children bathe in it. Boiling will not eliminate the contamination and will make the water more toxic.
We cannot really and truly tell you what that plan is at this time because we're waiting on the science.
There you go.
It's the second high-profile water contamination this year. In January, 300,000 West Virginia residents could not use the water for 10 days after a chemical spill. In Ohio, the city of Toledo is now setting up water distribution centers with help from the National Guard, but cannot yet tell residents when the public water supply will once again be safe.
Now to the Middle East. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said today the campaign to destroy the tunnels from Gaza is almost over. But he also declared that did not mean an end to the fighting and that Israel would not take part in peace talks with Hamas in Cairo. Here's Charlie Daggett.
Explosions above ground in Gaza show the intensity of the war Israeli forces are waging beneath it. More than 31 tunnels destroyed. But Israel has made clear there are no intentions of calling off the punishing offensive. The ceasefire, which was supposed to last for 72 hours, dissolved in less than 2 hours yesterday. Israel struck 200 alleged terror targets in Gaza today, and Hamas launched more than 80 rockets into Israel. Tonight, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that the militant group would pay what he called an intolerable price for the continued attacks.
Hamas again mistakenly believes that the people of Israel do not have the will and determination to fight them. And Hamas again will learn the hard way that Israel will do whatever it must do to protect its people.
The Israeli army's other top priority, finding Hadar Goldin, an Israeli soldier believed to have been kidnapped by Hamas. Hamas denies taking Goldin, and details of the abduction are vague. Peter Lerner is a military spokesman.
Was he okay when he was abducted?
We're not certain. We know that he was in close proximity of the suicide bomber that blew up and killed 2 other soldiers. So he may be injured, he may be wounded, he may be even dead.
It's a fate Goldin's family is not willing to accept. They say the Israeli military must not leave Gaza without him.
Charlie Daggett joins us now from Tel Aviv. Charlie, you had a chance to ask Prime Minister Netanyahu today what it's going to take to get Israel to the negotiating table. Did you get an answer to that question?
Well, Jim, not directly, but what he made clear is that there are no intentions for Israel to negotiate with Hamas anytime soon. He blamed Hamas for breaking this ceasefire. He vowed that Israel would continue to fight in Gaza, and he asked international leaders, what he called responsible international leaders, to back Israel.
Charlie Daggett covering for us tonight in Tel Aviv. Charlie, thank you. And late tonight, the Israeli military confirmed that Lieutenant Goldin was killed in combat yesterday in Gaza. As far as Hamas is concerned, any peace deal would have to lift the economic blockade that has largely cut off Gaza and its people from the rest of the world. Barry Peterson in Gaza has more.
When people returned to neighborhoods today where Israelis said their ground offensive was done, most found little to say from war's destruction. Israel cut off cement during its 8-year blockade, saying it was being used not to build a better life, but Hamas tunnels to attack Israel.
Cement is the basic material.
But no cement, says American-educated engineer Mustafa El-Hawi, means nothing gets rebuilt.
In Gaza, cement is the key for every construction in Gaza. Because even homes, mosques, schools.
So is Gaza's lone power plant gone. With help from the outside world, it might be repaired in months. Without help, it may never work again. And without light, many of Gaza's 1.8 million people will live in a modern-day dark ages. When you talk about what's gone, you're also talking about food. This facility used to make products like cheese, yogurt, milk. Now it's gone. Chicken farmer Hussein al-Sawari opened his stall and sold out in 2 hours. He had almost no chickens because his farm was destroyed by an airstrike. We visited his home that he opened to 60 relatives and neighbors who lost theirs.
How many people are sleeping in here?
As many as 12 now sleep in the bedrooms.
Oh, my word. Salam alaikum.
In living rooms, people crowded around the one piece of furniture, a table.
Why have you taken all of these people in?
They are all homeless, he said. I can't let them live on the streets. 60 people will make a meal here tonight from beans, a can of meat, cheese, some tomatoes. There is not much else because of the war and the blockade, so they survive the only way they have left, by having and helping each other.
The former governor of Virginia, Bob McDonnell, will be back in federal court in Richmond Monday, where he and his wife are on trial for influence peddling, exchanging $165,000 in gifts for political favors. Vanita Nair tells us about the couple's defense. This wasn't a case of broken morals, but a broken marriage.
The Ferrari former governor Bob McDonnell is driving in this picture belongs to businessman Johnny Williams. The more than $6,000 Rolex with McDonnell's name engraved on the back was a gift Williams purchased. Now the businessman is the star witness against the former governor and his wife.
You know, we're looking forward to just having the truth come out as the case goes on.
The former governor's lawyers say McDonnell's relationship with Williams was normal political activity. The governor's wife, Maureen McDonnell, has her own defense team, arguing she had a crush on Williams because her own marriage was broken. Jurors saw 1,200 phone calls and text messages between Maureen and Williams. On the day of the 2011 Virginia earthquake, she texted him, "I just felt the earth move, and I wasn't having sex." That same year, Williams picked up the tab for Maureen's $20,000 Manhattan shopping spree. Williams, who is also married, denied any romantic relationship with Maureen. While the former governor says he made a bad judgment accepting gifts, he has denied breaking any laws and says he never promised Williams anything of consequence.
If there's one commonality with all of these cases, or at least many of these cases, it's sex and money, or both.
Dave Leventhal is a senior reporter at the Center for Public Integrity. He says this case may be the government's chance to send a message.
If something does come down that is very strong, if Bob McDonnell was to go to prison for a significant amount of time, that definitely could have a deterrent effect.
The corruption trial is scheduled to last 4 more weeks, with Williams back on the stand Monday.
I guess it's the knee-jerk reaction is that it's kind of scary, but when you think about it and think it through and know the facts about it, then it's to know that Emory's really good at what they do, and the fact that Ebola is not transmitted but at least bodily fluids, then I mean they're going to be smart about it. I don't see it getting out.
I think it seems like they can keep it contained with the facilities they have, and since it's only transmitted via bodily fluids, it seems like a very slim risk to other Atlanta residents and people passing through.
I mean, we've got the best facilities in the world to deal with this stuff, and the techniques and stuff that we can develop here with the resources that we can throw at it is the best chance this guy has for survival, and it's probably also the best chance to develop treatments and cures and stuff that we can take back overseas so that it doesn't come back here.
We will have water is being transported up from basically all over the state of Ohio at this time. What I would ask the community to do is realize that we are handling this in the most responsible way we can, and we're not putting information out there that we can't substantiate. We're going to get through the next 10 hours, I can tell you that, and we're going to have water available in the next 10 hours for those that need it. If we need it beyond that 10 hours, we're going to accomplish that too. But that's a long-term plan, and hopefully this is not going to extend out in that. But very honestly, with what I was told today by the scientists over at Stone Lab, the algae bloom happens to be it's all in that same area. And so therefore, unless we experience a strong southwest wind to move that further out into the lake, we're going to continually see the same problem as we extract water from the lake and into our systems.
The impact had a great energy, pulverizing the cabin and the aircraft. I have finished my investigations, both in terms of the accident and the identification of the victims. We have completely removed from the site all biological elements which could have remained, as we have classified them as unidentifiable elements. We have scoured the sand and pulled everything together so that no parts of the victims are left there. We have also, together with the military forces present, searched the area so that no personal belongings of the victims are left.
Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free. Even in the United States, they seize them like dogs. They seize them like dogs, even in the United States. 1, 2, 3, 4! Occupation no more! Occupation no more! Israel is never safe! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Not a nickel, not a dime!
Not a nickel, not a dime!
No more for Israeli crime!
No more for Israeli crime! Dass Sie die ganzen Strecke mitgemacht haben. Wir freuen uns, dass wir hier angekommen sind, wo unseren Rجال أمام الشارع مفتوح لمشاهدة Gruppe oder was Gruppe? Ich grüße Sie alle. Gern werden diese Massaker im westlichen Sion auf Raketenangriffe der Hamas oder ähnliches. Bevölkerung schützen. Meine Damen und Herren, liebe Freunde Volkes, ich frage mich dann, viele werden ermordet. Liebe Freunde, Vereinbarung gehalten und sämtliche UNO. Es heißt, die Würde aller Menschen auf dieser Welt ist wahrlich Strafen, Gazastreifen, leben auch Menschen.
Eine Ideologie, das Töten von Unschuldigen.
Viva, viva Palästina!
مسعى الهنية
يا مسعى الهنية
الخيانة عربية
الخيانة عربية
فلسطين غير صراع فلسطين غير صراع They're stealing our land. They're destroying our hospitals.
Free, free! Free! Free, free! Free! Free, free!
The world must understand it. We must stop all the terror from the Zionists.
The bombardment! Stop the blockade!
Bombs, explosions, airstrikes, warplanes, tanks, injuries, death, atrocities, evacuation, and ground incursion are the words Gaza's children have been used to since the beginning of Israel's brutal onslaught on the besieged enclave. Those children, whom the entire world failed to protect, explained the Israeli aggression on Gaza with their own words.
We left Al-Shafa'iyya at 4 a.m. under Israeli fire. We called the ICRC, but they couldn't help. I was very scared. It was like 1948. All people were running away. We evacuated to Al-Shafa hospital. I don't like the hospital, but there is no place to go. It's dangerous here as Israel wants to bomb it.
Both Ramadan and Eid have finished, while those children were deprived of their basic rights. Many of them have lost a loved one or searched for their toys in the ruins that were once their homes.
We ran away. I saw a girl that was killed. We went to the same school. They told us it would be targeted. We ran away again and it was bombed when we were on the streets. Then we came to Al-Shafa. I just want to feel safe and live like other children around the world.
They bombed my house and our neighborhood. Al-Beit Hanan was bombed. It's only because we live near the borders, but we haven't done anything wrong. What are we guilty of?
More than 1,000 children were injured and hundreds were killed in cold blood during the Israeli aggression. Almost always, children bury their parents, but in Gaza, parents bury their children. A 7-year-old child in Gaza has already witnessed 3 Israeli aggressions in his lifetime. Such aggressions would definitely traumatize him for the rest of his life, while the international community stands still.
The Egyptian proposal is the real chance to find a solution to the crisis in Gaza and to end the bloodshed. Time is decisive. We have to take advantage of it quickly to douse the fire and to stop the bloodshed of Palestinians.
Tribute to the young people that they came here and sort of felt that they were going through the war themselves, but they felt that they were in a better place here than back there, in the sense of that maybe here they could try to witness the fact that not all Israelis hate all Palestinians.
The conflict is the real enemy. The Palestinian people, the Israeli people, we are not enemies. We have the same interest, which is to receive our right for self-determination, freedom, dignity.
Channels here talk, and the media in general, talk about Palestinians like they are numbers. Like they say 1,400 people died in Gaza and they don't really acknowledge or say that most of them are civilians.
We close tonight with the story of a former NFL hopeful named Brian Banks. He was a terrific linebacker whose career was derailed by a wrongful conviction. But as Carter Evans reports, Banks will now be able to make his living from pro football after all.
Brian Banks broke the news on his Facebook page. "I'm honored to say I've taken an amazing position with the front office of the NFL. He'll be a manager in the football operations department. Today," he told us, "it's just now sinking in."
It's an opportunity of a lifetime. It's something that I, at one point in my life, would never even think of happening.
Banks had been accused by a high school classmate of a rape that never happened. He was just 16 years old, a star linebacker at Long Beach Poly High, with a dream to play in the NFL. Instead, he spent 5 years in prison and another 4 on probation before his alleged victim admitted she'd made it all up. When Banks was exonerated in 2012, his story gained national attention.
My only dream in the world was to just be free.
But there was also a desire to prove something. Even though he'd lost 10 years, he hoped, against all odds, that he could still make it in the NFL. He tried out for the Seattle Seahawks and finally took the field in a preseason game last year with the Atlanta Falcons.
It's a dream come true. And if it all ended today, then, Mom, I did it.
Banks was always realistic about his chances of making it in the NFL, and his career on the field ended with that game.
I chased the dream, and I will continue to chase it as long as I can. But when it's over, that means it's just new beginnings in other places of my life.
That included motivational speaking, where he caught the attention of NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell.
I just cannot wait to be in New York, working with the NFL, and just continuing to use success as a response to everything that I've been through in my life.
In the end, his success off the field led him back to pro football.